If you are parenting a son right now, please sit with this for a minute. 3 out of 4 young men struggling with their mental health never tell their parents. According to data released this year by the World Health Organization, these boys don't formally report their distress to adults. Instead, they whisper it to friends, they write it in private notes, or they simply carry it alone. This silence is the logical response to a specific set of rules boys learn early on about how to handle their own distress. From age 4 onward, boys absorb 1,000 small cultural messages. You must be strong. Don't be a burden. Figure it out yourself. Just man up. When puberty hits, those subtle cues solidify into thick emotional armor. This graph plots the energy required to express vulnerability over time, illustrating what behavioral scientists call an activation cost. It is the immense psychological friction required for a boy to initiate a request for help. Our standard safety nets rely on passive disclosure, establishing a threshold for action that sits completely out of reach, far above his available energy. Passive systems require a student to physically raise a hand, fill out a form, or purposefully walk into a counselor's office. Those logistical steps demand a public display of vulnerability, directly contradicting a decade of behavioral conditioning. The very systems we built to catch these students fail because they demand an upfront psychological cost the boys simply cannot afford to pay. Since we cannot erase years of societal programming overnight, we have to redesign the system itself to drop that activation cost to near zero. The process begins by embedding routine behavioral screening into a student's daily touchpoints. Instead of a formal, face-to-face clinical confrontation, this approach leverages side-by-side relationships with trusted adults, coaches, advisors, and teachers. When one of these adults proactively initiates the conversation, the student no longer carries the burden of asking for help. Shifting from a system that waits for disclosure to one that actively reaches out neutralizes the psychological friction. Integrated teletherapy platforms, specifically MentalSpace School, provide the infrastructure to bypass logistical friction at scale. A male student who refuses the highly visible public walk down a school hallway to a counselor's office at lunch will often log into a session from his bedroom with the door closed. But psychological access means nothing without financial access. That requires broad insurance acceptance and zero-cost options for Medicaid. Schools also face their own friction when implementing these programs, dealing with looming legislative pressure like Georgia's HB 268 compliance deadline in July 2026. Dedicated external therapy teams absorb the complex burden of HIPAA and FERPA compliance, clearing administrative roadblocks for existing school staff. Deploying licensed, culturally competent therapists ensures that once a student connects, the relational friction remains low after the first session. An effective modern safety net systematically dismantles every logistical, financial, and regulatory wall standing between the student and the provider. This chart tracks the performance outcomes of implementing that zero-friction infrastructure. Schools report an 89% improvement in attendance and a 92% reduction in reported student anxiety, alongside high family satisfaction. Helping a son doesn't require cracking him open or dismantling his defenses. Instead, we work on becoming the kind of adult and building the kind of system that he feels safe enough to confide in on his own terms. These vital disclosures happen slowly, often in unscripted, unplanned moments. By engineering frictionless access to care, we stop waiting for young men to raise their hands and build a world that hears their silent struggle.